on to this post.
Page.
Okay.
Now it is after cloudy morning, so obscure.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm back. Okay. We got some people waiting. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my speech now. So while we are anxiously awaiting the time that we can safely all get back together and perform on stage for you, we are, this was actually Lathan Bowling's idea. He's on here. He's one of our teenagers. We're doing a virtual table read. So for those of you who don't know what a table read is, basically the table read is one of the first things that we do as a cast when we're starting rehearsal for a production. Oh. At the table read, you know, this is something that happens not only in theater, but for movies and TV shows. At the table read, we sit around a table, and here's our virtual table. And we read through the script. We, as actors, start to learn and try to figure out who our characters are and what we might want to do with them in the play, and kind of start learning how we need to interact with each other. And so we've done a little bit more than that tonight, but we thought this was a really good opportunity for us as artists to get together and read some plays that we might not ordinarily perform at Artist Collaborative Theater. This is a one-act play, about 30 minutes long. It's not, you know, not something we would typically do, but I had a lot of fun just reading scripts and getting to see all this great stuff that's out there. So as far as the procedures go, if you are watching, if you could mute yourself. There's a little microphone down in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. That way we just eliminate the background noise. And I apologize, I've got some background noise going on right now. The neighbor's mowing the lawn. Hopefully you don't hear too much of it. And so what we have is we have our actors, and I will introduce them. Samantha Johnson is playing the role of Babe. Adam Johnson is Mitch. Sarah Norman is Mrs. O'Fallon. Lathan Bowling is Jim. Jennifer McClanahan is Linda. Her daughter Chloe is Molly. And I will be reading the stage directions, which is something you wouldn't typically see us doing on stage, obviously. But the stage directions are basically what the playwright wants the actors to do on stage. And so if you can watch and listen and envision us on stage with the set, see what our characters are doing. So a little bit of a fun, you know, you get to be creative and imagine what this would look like on stage. This play is by Tennessee Williams. It's called The Magic Tower. This is one of his early works, written in 1936. It actually won an award at a festival in St. Louis in 1936. And then we didn't really hear of it again. Tennessee Williams, you've heard the name. If you're not familiar with Tennessee Williams, you've heard of his plays, The Glass Menagerie, Streetcar Named Desire, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. If you've not seen the play, you've heard of it, or you've seen an old movie. So he's one of our greatest American playwrights. And this is not the first time ACT has done some Tennessee Williams work. We did several, how many years ago was it, Lathan? Candles to the Sun.
20, 2015,
16.
2014, somewhere around there.
So
About 4 years ago.
About 4 or 5 years ago, we did Candles to the Sun, which is also one of Tennessee Williams' early works. It's about a mining town. So it was one of my favorite shows that ACT ever did. So this show was after the festival in 1936 that Tennessee Williams won an award for, was unpublished until 2011. And I found it published in kind of an anthology of one-act plays by Tennessee Williams. And some of the discussion in the book was that you'll see a lot of themes. If you're familiar with any of his more popular work, you might see some things that kind of look like foreshadowing of another play even. So that's fun. And afterwards, we will talk about it. This is a good discussion play. We'll be reading for about 30 minutes. And then after that, we'll start the discussion. If you have a question, unmute yourself and ask it. And let's see, is there anything else I need to talk about? I don't think so. I think we're ready to go. And like I said, I'll be reading stage directions. So pretend I'm not here, and everything I say, imagine the characters doing it. Okay, time. A rainy Sunday evening in late winter. Scene. A garret converted into the living quarters of an unsuccessful young artist and his wife. It is a single room, evidently used for all domestic purposes as well as the artist's work. There is a large bay window in the center of the back wall. The door is to the left. In the right-hand corner is a table bearing a wash tub and an electric grill, partly concealed by an ornamental screen. In front of the screen is a studio couch with a bright assortment of pillows. Above the walls are colorful batiks and watercolors. Facing the bay window is an easel, over which is hung an artist's smock, hat, and cane. The room has an ingenious, very inexpensive charm. As the curtain rises, Linda is discovered at the ironing board, front center. She is moving the iron slowly up and down in one spot, her eyes fastened broodingly on Jim. Jim is reading a magazine. Linda is more mature than Jim. She's still young and fresh, but in voice and movement she has an air of quiet wisdom. Her rather cryptic smile is suggestive of emotional reserves and undiscovered depths of experience. There is something of the Mona Lisa about her. Jim is still a bit adolescent. He is highly intelligent, even brilliant, but hasn't outgrown the impulsive naivety of less experienced youth. As the play begins, a thin curl of smoke is seen rising from Linda's iron. Jim drops his magazine and sniffs.
Do I smell something burning?
Oh, I'm afraid you do. It's your shirt.
Jim, jumping up.
My white shirt? My only white shirt? Linda, how could you?
It's very simple, Jim. I was looking at you and I completely forgot what I was doing.
Simple is right. Did it burn very much?
Just the tail of it, darling.
Thank heavens for that. Maybe I better get out of the room when you're ironing my shirts.
Please don't. I don't want you to.
Why not?
I like so very much having you here.
Do you really?
Of course I do, my lord and master. I feel so warm and snug and protected when you're here in this little room with me.
She goes over to the bureau and places his shirt in a drawer.
It's just as though I were locked up in the top of a room of a tower with the stairs so long and steep that nobody but you could ever come near me again.
What a poetic idea that is. I'll think I'll have to paint you a picture of you, Linda, in your magic tower.
In our magic tower.
Yes, and with your long black hair flowing out of the window, like Melisandre's.
Oh, no. Not out of the window. I never look out of the window if I can help it. It's all so helplessly ugly out there. Those awful billboards and filling stations and delicatessens. I like to think of our magic tower as being surrounded by wonderful green forests.
Yes, that's it. Green forest. Forest of pine trees.
Yes, and lovely blue clear lakes.
With crocodiles to eat bill collectors up.
Oh, yes, Jim. And a dragon to breathe fire in Mrs. O'Fallon's face every time she comes for the rent. Oh, no, there wouldn't be any rent or any bill collectors or Mrs. O'Fallon's, would there? That's the marvelous thing about living in a magic tower, Jim. There's only two people, the knight and the lady,
The enchanted prince and the princess.
and they're always together. She won't ever let him leave her.
Can't he even go hunting for supper?
No, he can't leave her a single moment because when he's gone, the magic tower starts to crumble. And if he stays away very long, it falls to pieces and turns to a desert island. So even if she moons over him so much that she burns the tail of his only white shirt, he has to forgive her and stay right there in the magic tower looking perfectly happy about it.
Jim, laughing and returning to the couch with his magazine.
Poor old Linda. It's all just make-believe, isn't it?
Make believe? Of course it isn't. It's absolutely real.
You can't tell me you don't find this life pretty dull after the excitement of the show business, moving around from place to place all the time.
What makes you think I found moving around from place to place exciting?
Didn't you? I should think you've found it terribly exciting.
Terribly is right. Just like being tied to the tail of a runaway horse.
I've liked it. You know, I've never been outside the city. I've grown up in the middle of it. All this ugliness. I'd give anything to been the places you've been. At least you've got that. Memories. Things to look back on.
Memories. Yes, I have lots of those. Some of them aren't so swell.
And now it's all narrowed down to just this one little room. You must get awfully tired of it.
If I tell you something very seriously, will you promise to take my word for it?
What?
In this little room, I've been completely happy for the first and only time in my life.
She sets the iron on its end.
Pull the cord out, will you, Jim? The iron's getting too hot.
You really mean that, Linda?
Of course I mean it. I'm completely happy here.
Jim stretches out on the couch.
Why?
I don't know.
It isn't a very handsome room.
No.
The wallpaper is atrocious.
Yes.
Nothing very grand about the furnishings.
No.
It's too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter. The roof leaks in 3 places.
Yes, you're right about that.
Jim feels
What is it then?
I think you know.
Something very supernatural, I suppose.
No, something very natural.
She places more ironed pieces in bureau drawers.
Well, I give up.
I'm surprised at your stupidity. What else could make me completely happy but just us? Our being here together like this. You and I. A few feet of space between us. That's all.
So that's why you're happy.
Yes, that's why I'm so happy. So you see, it when it wasn't just make believe about the magic tower. When two people make their own world, there is something rather magical about it, don't you think?
And did you mean it about the tower falling to pieces when I go out?
Yes, I meant that too. When you go out, when you just go out of this room for a moment, something happens.
The spell is broken!
Yes, the spell is broken. I begin to look around me and I say to myself, what atrocious wallpaper. How damp the air is. If the roof continues to leak at this rate, I shall have to learn to swim before dark.
And what the devil are we going to have for supper tonight?
Oh yes, that is the most immediate problem. What do we eat and when?
I know. Miss O'Fallon had chicken for dinner. I'm going to raid the Frigidaire right now.
He gets up and runs a comb through his hair.
And leave me up here by myself? I might drown before you get back. No, I'm going with you.
I'll say you aren't. If Miss O'Fallon caught you in her Frigidaire, it would be grand larceny.
I know. She doesn't approve of me. She thinks I married you for your family fortune.
She gives him a shove towards the door.
Go on, swipe a drumstick for me.
When Jim goes out, Linda's happy manner vanishes. She shrugs her shoulders as though trying to dismiss some oppressive thought. She goes over to the window, then disgustedly says,
Rain. All the time.
She places a wash bowl under one of the leaking places. Footsteps are heard and rapping at the door.
Mrs. Flynn!
Mrs. O'Fallon enters. She is an Irish landlady with an acid humor.
Oh, Mrs. O'Fallon, how charming of you to come up. Just when I was feeling so lonesome.
No doubt. See, you're doing your worship here.
Oh, yes, I'm quite domestic these days.
Well, it ain't allowed. It's against the rules of the establishment, Mrs. O'Flynn. Roomers ain't allowed to do their wash in the rooms.
But, Mrs. O'Fallon, Jim and I, we have to save every way that we can.
No doubt. I think you sure would. You're 5 weeks behind on your rent now. I've turned out many a roomer in the dead of winter for being less than that, Mrs. Flynn. This ain't no charitable institution.
I know. I was just saying to Jim this morning, dear Mrs. O'Fallon, she's been so patient with us.
No, it's your husband I've been patient with, Mrs. Flynn. I have always a great deal of sympathy for young men like Jim who don't know properly how to take care of themselves.
I know. Jim has told me how lovely you were to him, Mrs. O'Fallon. Just like a mother, he said.
Just like a mother, is it? Well, I like that. I'm hardly as old as that, Mrs. Flynn.
Oh, no, how stupid of me. It was an older sister, he said, just like an older sister.
Well, you're a bit older than Jim yourself, ain't you, Mrs. Flynn?
Why, yes, I am a little bit older than Jim is, but what are you driving at, Mrs. O'Fallon?
I'll tell you what I'm driving at. You're an able-bodied young woman. Why don't you go back to work?
Go back to the show?
Oh, so it was show business you was working in, was it?
Yes, it was.
Well, an actress. And did you get fired?
Why, no, I did not.
Then you take my advice. Go back to your show business, girl. Jim Flynn ain't hardly a man yet.
He's my husband, Mrs. O'Fallon.
Oh, I am aware of that. I made him show me the license, and I gave him permission to bring you in. I know these young people.
Oh, Mrs. O'Fallon, Jim and I are so happy here. So completely happy. Don't you see? If I went back to the show, all of this would end. We'd be separated. We'd lose each other.
She covers her face with her hands.
This wonderful thing that we've made here together, this magic tower, would fall to pieces. It would all be ruined.
What kind of nonsense is this?
I'm sorry.
You show people. You're always putting on an act. I had one before. A Shakespearean actor he was. He started reciting Hamlet's solitary every time I asked him for the rent. Couldn't get a word in edgewise. I have to be more strict about payments from married couples than from you single men. Good night.
She starts to leave. Just
Hello, old sourpuss. What's up?
Oh, get along with you, Jimmy. Always fooling around. You ought to be trounced.
Mrs. O'Fallon exits rather menacingly. Jim thumbs his nose at her back as she closes the door.
Oh, that terrible woman. She just gives me the creeps.
What was it about? The rent? Poor old Linda. She's always picking on you. Looky here.
From under his coat, he produces a drumstick and an evening paper.
Success! Here, that's for you.
You eat it, Jim. I'm not hungry.
Aren't you really? Well, I am. All right.
He lies on the couch reading the paper and gnawing the drumstick. Linda picks up some sewing. Her face resumes its former quiet smile.
I'm glad that you're back. It's so much nicer now.
Hmm?
In a minute, I'll forget everything that she said.
Jim jumps up suddenly, his face ecstatic.
He's here, Linda. He's here.
What on earth are you howling about? The new chimpanzee at the zoo?
A fine way to speak of our future patron.
Our future patron?
Jim springs toward her, brandishing the paper.
T. Anthony Westcott, the most famous art dealer in Europe, the man who discovered half of the modern masters, arrived this morning aboard the Ile de France, stopping at the Waldorf Astoria. I am here on business, says Mr. Westcott. My business is to review the best of contemporary American art. I'm especially interested in the work of struggling young men of talent who have not acquired a reputation. I shall be the Christopher Columbus of modern art.
Good heavens.
And I, Mr. Westcott, shall be your Virgin Islands.
What on earth do you mean?
I'm going to see him at once.
Going to see him in all this rain at the Waldorf? How do you know they'll even let you in, darling?
Let me in? I'll break down the door. Where's my hat? My cane?
Here.
Linda hands him his wide-brimmed hat.
Yes, and my cane. All artists have canes. I'll break it over his head if he says he's not in. Oh, he'll see me, won't he, Linda?
Of course he'll see you, darling.
She hands him his cane.
But don't get so excited over it. Act very nonchalant, as though you didn't give a tinker's damn, as though every art dealer in America were simply clamoring for your work. Hadn't you better call him first?
Call him? Yes, of course. I'll make an appointment. I'll tell him I'm the president of the National Academy.
Oh no, tell him you're a millionaire.
A multimillionaire who wants an old master to match his new mistress. That's it. That'll make him foam at the mouth. At least till he sees me and the truth comes out. Say, have you got a nickel?
Not a penny, darling.
Neither have I. How ghastly poor we are. It should be very easy for us to get into the kingdom of heaven.
I think we're already there.
We will be, Linda. If Westcott gives me a break, we'll be made. Never mind the appointment. I'll take him by surprise.
But what will you do for car fare?
Suppose I have to walk.
Through all this rain?
Would you rather I borrowed a dime from Miss O'Fallon? Maybe I better do that. I'll call her Makushla.
Please don't. Perhaps you'd better wait until tomorrow morning. He'll still be in town.
No, not on your life. Brimstone for all I care. I'm going right now. I'll think of you all the way, Linda.
He pulls up his collar and turns down his hat brim.
That will keep me warm and dry.
I'll think of you too. Aren't you forgetting something?
Oh, I haven't kissed you.
I meant your pictures.
Of course, my pictures.
He dashes around the room selecting canvases.
Which one shall I take? I know, the ones of you. I'll take them to bring me good luck.
I've brought you nothing but bad luck, Jim.
Don't be silly. You're my lucky star.
Your evil star.
Selecting pictures.
This one and this one. Ah, this one dancing in your costume.
Humming to herself, Linda goes to the portable. She puts on a Strauss waltz, The Artist Life.
What are you doing, Linda? This is no time for music.
It's always time for music. See? He doesn't deny it. I am his evil star. Dance with me, darling. Before you go.
Linda, you're so indifferent.
Indifferent? Oh, if you only knew how excited I am.
Worried?
Not a bit. Why should I be? There's no doubt in my mind. I'm so sure of you, Jim.
Are you really?
Pause. Linda takes it up and they dance gaily around the room.
Remember to ask him for an advance of payment, Jim. We're 5 weeks behind on the rent.
5 weeks? Oh, that's nothing.
And guess what we're having for supper tonight?
Nightingale tongues. We'll have nightingale tongues.
Half a loaf of stale bread.
Jim breaks away and clasps his ears.
Well, half a loaf is better than none.
Linda, burying her head on his shoulder and hugging him.
But it's such stale bread, darling. So dreadfully stale. It would ruin your dental work.
Remember the Bishop of Bingen? While everyone else was stricken with famine, he locked himself in a tower filled with good grain. Alas, poor fellow, the rats ate him up.
What's the moral, please?
We'll never be eaten by rats. The filthy rats of greed will never get in this magic tower of ours, will they, Linda?
Of course they won't.
There is something magical about it, isn't there?
This little room of ours?
Yes, our magic tower, with stairs so long and steep that nobody but you and I can ever reach. It's like living in a state of enchantment, isn't it, Linda? Don't you feel the same way about it sometimes?
Of course I do. I feel it so strongly sometimes that I'm frightened.
Why frightened?
I wonder where it will end.
You aren't really enchanted. In a state of enchantment, people are never concerned about endings. They just go on and on and on. Nothing ever happens. Nothing, I mean, that really matters.
How thrilling that sounds. I wonder if it's true.
I'll prove it to you, Linda.
I'm sure that you will.
She kisses him and he goes out the door. Jim, going down the stairs.
And nightingale songs for supper. Remember that. Walking at wet weather gives me such an appetite. So long.
I wish you weren't going.
Jim
Why?
from the stairs.
When you're gone, the magic tower isn't safe. I have such awful thoughts.
About me?
No, about me. I think what a bother I am. How happy you'd be without me. Just think, if it wasn't for me, you'd still be a gay young student without a care in the world.
You lovely fool. I'd be the worst, most miserable man. So long.
Goodbye, Jim. Good luck.
She stands in the open doorway until he's out of sight. Then she closes the door. She leans against it a moment with a faint, brooding smile. Then, advancing to the center of the room and looking slowly around.
Our magic tower. Our lovely leaking tower.
At this point, the stage is briefly darkened to indicate the passing of a few hours' time. During this interval, Linda has undergone a transformation. With Jim absent, she is no longer the self-contained young woman that she appeared to be in the beginning of the play. The romantic spell is lifted so that she can see more clearly in the darker aspects of their situation. She's pacing restlessly around the room, now and then glancing toward their situation. Glancing toward the window with a fretful gesture as the lights go on. Someone knocks at the door.
You, Mrs. O'Fallon?
No, it's just me.
Oh, Molly, come in.
Enter Molly, a gangling, freckle-faced girl of 15.
There's company to see you, Miss Flynn. Shh. What's the matter?
Linda softly closes the door.
Is it a big fat man with a briefcase?
A briefcase of what?
Oh, a satchel, a leather case, you know. Is he a bill collector or something like that?
Oh, I thought you meant like a briefcase of measles or something. Yeah. Guess what he called you, Miss Flynn? He said you were the Duchess.
It's Mitch.
She
Is it
throws
you?
open the door, runs out on the landing. Mrs.
Mitch, is
O'Fallon.
it you?
Molly! Molly!
Me and the babe.
Well, I'll be seeing you, Duchess.
Molly leaves.
Oh, babe.
Babe
Yeah,
from down
it's
below.
me. We're waiting by the elevator.
How are you?
She comes back into the room with both hands pressed to her face. She starts to laugh, which laugh rapidly becomes tears. Babe and Mitch are heard climbing the stairs.
78, 79, 80. Whoa, my stars and fallen arches. I wouldn't come climb another 5 flights of stairs to heaven.
Enter Babe and Mitch. They are a flashily dressed young couple, good-looking and good-natured, but not too sensitive. Distinctly theatrical types.
Duchess, for crying out loud.
She drops a large paper-wrapped bundle and flings her arms around Linda's sobbing figure.
Say, what kind of reception is this? I'd like to know. I played to some pretty deadpans in my time, but never have they busted out crying the moment I walked on the stage. Not even when me and Sarah burn up.
Can it, Mitch?
Mitch laughs and throws his arm around Linda.
I'm sorry. It just struck me all of a sudden.
What the devil? Did you think we wasn't going to play this town anymore? Look at here, Duchess. A wedding present.
He picks up the package Babe dropped. Linda takes it.
Oh, how sweet.
Still crying, she kneels on the floor to unwrap the package.
Oh,
Yeah, a traveling bag.
Show people can always use an extra piece of luggage once in a while.
it's beautiful. Jim and I will use it on our honeymoon. We're planning to have one someday.
Babe surveys the room.
What a dump. Parlor, bedroom, and bath all in one.
There isn't any bath. Jim says that baths are an affection of the idle rich.
A what? What kind of guy is this husband of yours?
No bathtub? Gosh, Duchess, what do you make your gin in? Well,
He looks at the leaking places in the roof.
I see you got plenty of running water anyway.
Isn't it awful? It's been leaking all afternoon, but when the sun comes out, it's really very pleasant in here.
Mitch seats himself on the floor beside her.
So this is where you've been hiding out since you quit the show.
This is it.
She takes Mitch's handkerchief to wipe her eyes.
Oh, it really isn't as bad as it looks. It's what they call a studio apartment. All young artists have places like this.
I get you. Bohemian, huh? Sure. This is really the stuff. Atmosphere, color, cockroaches, and a leaking roof. Well, where's the master of the house?
He's calling on T. Anthony Westcott at the Waldorf Astoria. He's just arrived this morning abroad the Isle de France.
Oh, the Ile de France will fancy that. Don't you remember, my dear? That's where we met the Count and Countess de Tootsie. It was simply ripping. You know how the Count dunked his monocle in Lady Clamfeather's soup.
Oh, babe, crazy as ever. Westcott's an art dealer. Jim's gone to show him some of his pictures, and if he'll just take an interest in Jim's work, it will mean everything for us. It will mean
She gets up and goes to the window.
just everything. Oh, I wish this rain would stop. Poor Jim will get all soaking wet.
So Jim's the name. What's the rest of it?
Mr. and Mrs. James Oliver Flynn.
Fancy moniker that. Look good on a billboard. Mr. and Mrs. Flynn and the 5 little flying Flynns. How about it, Duchess? What can he do? Dance, patter, croon, adagio?
He's an artist, you nut. Haven't you ever heard of an artist before?
Sure. An artist is a guy that's out of a job and don't give a damn.
He opens a cigarette case and offers it to Linda. Linda and Babe take cigarette.
Seriously, Duchess, how are you fixed?
Okay.
Come on, no stalling. What's the real situation? On the rocks, huh?
Everything is okay.
Yeah, everything including the roof. You look like you haven't had a square meal in a couple of weeks.
Come on, Duchess. You don't have to put on an act with us.
Linda walks back to the window.
Oh, he works so hard, poor Jim. It's pitiful how hard he works. And nothing ever comes of it. Nothing at all.
Just as I thought. He's a ham. Come on, Duchess, pack up this new traveling bag and let's get going.
What on earth do you mean?
You know that you can get your old job back.
You two must be crazy.
You're going out on tour with us, Duchess. Bergman said so. He sent us out here to get you. All is forgiven. Come home, he said.
Well, you can give Mr. Bergman my regrets. I'm not available this season. Say, what do you all think I am? Do you think I just walk out on Jim just because things are a little tough right now? I'm not any quitter.
Walked out on the show pretty quick.
I wasn't in love with the show.
So you're in love with this Sam?
Of course she ain't. Not the Duchess. She always had too much sense. Smartest girl on the show, Bergman used to say.
I am in love with him. Of course I am. And if you're
turns her
going to
back
talk about him like that,
The same old Duchess, always on the high horse about something.
Be sensible, kid.
Linda seats herself on the couch.
oh, it's like the show business and everything else. You have to work your way up.
Yeah, but in the show business, even the back row hoofers get regular pay. What do you folks live off of, huh? Love and a dime?
Love and 30 cents.
30 cents?
He gets 30 cents an hour, posing at the art school where he used to study.
Posies, posies. Who will buy my posies?
Once in a while, he paints an advertising poster. That helps out some.
Well, you can give him a job someday painting your signs on Broadway.
And so that's how you live? How do you do it, honey?
I don't know. Really, I don't. We just get along somehow. And you needn't feel so terribly sorry for me. I've changed. I'm not the girl that I used to be. Something has happened to me since I've been with Jim. Something terribly funny.
I can see that.
There's something mysterious about this little place of ours. We call it our magic tower. And when we're in it together, we're perfectly happy. We haven't a care in the world. You'd think we were millionaires.
Poor Duchess. She's gone off her nuts.
You think I'm crazy?
Crazy. I'll say so. Bergman's little pet she was. He pays her $50 a week, and like that, she walks out on the show. Marries a poor punk in a red beret.
He doesn't wear a red beret.
Marries a poor punk that stands up naked for 30 cents an hour.
He doesn't stand up naked.
Well, anyway, you married him, didn't you?
Yes, I did marry him. I was crazy about him.
Hear that, Mitch? She was crazy about him, but she ain't anymore.
Linda
Was, am,
Linda
was,
smiling.
am, and always will be.
She looks out the window.
Still raining. Still
Babe,
raining.
admit.
My heavens. Jim will be drowned.
Honey, if you're so crazy about this artist guy, why don't you give him an even break?
What do you mean, an even break? I do everything that I can to help Jim out. I wash his clothes, pose for him, mix his paint.
I don't mean that. You know what I mean. He'll never get nowhere tied to your apron strings.
Tied to my apron strings.
These artists never get married, honey, until they've made a success. They can't afford to. It ruins the career.
Funny she ain't thought of that herself. The babe is right, Duchess. You got to look at it that way. You don't want to be a rock around this guy's neck.
A rock around Jim's neck.
There's a minute of silence. Babe and Mitch eagerly studying the gathering darkness on Linda's face.
A rock. No, I couldn't be that.
She walks distractedly about the room.
That's what you'll be. Mark my words.
Babe's right about it, Duchess. That's the way you got to look at it. If you really love this guy.
You don't want to spoil his chances.
Stop. I won't listen to any more of it. You're just trying to ruin everything.
Think of the future, Duchess.
Yeah, the future.
You're making an awful mistake, honey, if you don't consider.
You got too much sense.
Stop, please.
Just think, if he wasn't tied up, what he could do.
Tied up? No.
If he wasn't tied up like this, he could go to Europe and study at one of them fancy schools over there. That's what all the real artists go.
Sure. They ain't got a chance if they don't.
How old is he, Duchess? I bet he's just a kid.
Listen, a smart young feller who ain't tied up with no dame.
He can always make his own way.
No, I couldn't go on without Jim.
Yes, you could, and you will. The show's pulling out tonight. You're going with us.
Oh, please, you're making me dizzy.
We open tomorrow in Chicago, play there 1 week, then south to St. Louis, New Orleans for Mardi Gras time, and after that, we go west, a coast-to-coast tour.
We play the Palace in Los Angeles. There's just a couple of hops from Hollywood, kid. Say, with your talent and brains,
And her good looks.
Bergman always said,
She'll wow them.
you bet she will. Good old Duchess. She always did. You should have seen Bergman, honey. The night you pulled out of the show, there were tears in his eyes. Honest to God, tears in his eyes. Wasn't there, Mitch?
He was all broken up.
Bergman.
Linda shivers and covers her face with her hands.
Look at her hands, Mitch. She's got dishwater hands.
Imagine that. The Duchess with dishwater hands.
Never mind, honey. A little cold cream rubbed in every night.
Don't.
Mitch glances at his wristwatch.
Come on, Linda. Pack up. The train pulls out at 7.
Linda turns to the window.
Give her time. Give her time. Let her think it over. Maybe she'd rather have him throw it up to her someday how she spoiled all of his chances.
Spoil his chances? No, I'll never do that. I'll do anything but that.
Just give her time. She has to think things over. It's the future she has to look out for, Mitch. 5 or 10 years from now.
5 or 10 years? Oh,
Yeah, if things keep going on like they're going now, you won't be so young in 5 or 10 years. He'll get tired of you, maybe. He'll look at you while you're bending over the bathtub with your face all red and sweaty and your hair and your eyes, and he'll say to himself, there she is, my ball and chain. If I wasn't tied to her apron strings.
Stop it, babe. I can't stand anymore.
She's right, Duchess. The babe is absolutely right.
There's a long silence. Linda slowly gets up from the couch. Mitch hands her his handkerchief.
Maybe she is. I don't know.
There now, that's more like it.
See? I knew she would come to her senses. It's just like Bergman said. She's too smart.
Won't old Bergman throw a fit when she sees her down at the station? The old boy will break down and cry.
Wait, not all at once. I can't decide right off like this.
You've got to, honey. It's the only way.
What time is it, Mitch?
5:45.
He ought to be back by now.
Don't wait for him. He'll talk you out of it.
Just do what you know is best for him, Duchess.
What's best for him?
Pack your things. Be ready in half an hour, Duchess.
Swell.
How can I know?
What?
If Westcott gives Jim a break.
You stick with him, kid. You'll be all right.
Say it's a cinch. We'll phone the station and reserve your berth. Yeah, a compartment.
We'll have a real celebration tonight. We'll have a time.
Back on the road with the Duchess.
You go too fast for me.
Yeah, back on the road.
Take it easy, Mitch.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Those pictures are no good. They ain't got anything.
Say, kid, how we know about this Westcott deal? If it goes through or not? Will you give us a ring?
No time for that. Give us the old Bronx semaphore.
What's that?
Honey, that's what got me out of many a tight spot before you and me started going steady. Look, it's like this. The dame goes to the window, and if the coast is clear, she hoists the shade like this. That means she's going. Or I'm coming, as the case may be.
A voice of experience.
Get it, Duchess? But if it's a no-go, if the old man's on the spot, pull the shade all the way down like this. That means the game is called on account of rain or something. You get the idea?
Yeah, I get you.
Let's run through the routine. We don't want any slip-ups on this.
Up if I'm going, down if I'm not. Is that it?
Smart girl. We'll be back in a half an hour.
Keep your chin up, Duchess. So long.
Mitch and Babe leave. The stage is darkened for a moment to indicate the passing of about 15 minutes. Linda is still standing by the window. Footsteps are heard slowly climbing the stairs. Linda turns from the window, her eyes wide with emotion.
Jim?
The door is pushed open and Jim comes in. He stands in the doorway without speaking, a dazed look on his face, the canvases sagging from under his arm.
Oh, Jim, your pictures, they're all wet.
All wet? Yes, all wet.
He tosses them to the floor.
That's what Westcott said about them. All wet.
He tosses his hat into the corner of the room.
Only he didn't put it quite so bluntly. Oh, he was very genteel about it. Used a lot of high-sounding language. Talked about planes of consciousness and aesthetic values. All the usual tripe. Shook his head very sadly and said he feared the world wasn't ready for my kind of art yet. Go back to school, he said, and master your technique. You're still just a boy. You've got years and years. Years and years of what? I asked him. Starvation? He laughed. He said I was taking it too hard. Oh, Linda.
He throws himself down on the couch.
I'm so terribly disgusted with things.
As he cries her name, Linda stretches her arms toward him and a look of tenderness comes over her face. She feels that he needs her now. Linda, lifting her hand slowly to the window shade.
Jim, when I pull this shade down, do you know what I'm really doing? I'm shutting out the whole world. Mr. Westcott was right, Jim. We have got years and years.
Of what?
Of each other.
Each other? Each other? Do you think we can eat each other?
Jim!
Calm down to earth, woman. You can't stay up in the clouds all your life.
It's not the clouds I'm up in, Jim. It's our magic tower.
Magic Tower baloney! It's Miss O'Fallon's attic that we're up in, Linda. Miss O'Fallon's lousy, leaking attic. And we're 5 weeks behind on rent. Do you know what's going to happen to us, Linda? We're going to get kicked out on our ears. That's what.
I thought you said in this state of enchantment in which we lived, nothing ever happened. Nothing ever mattered except our having each other.
Those were pretty words.
You didn't mean them?
There's a long silence.
I see. Just words.
She goes slowly back to the window, gives the cord a jerk, and the curtain flies up.
What was that?
Just the shade flying up.
She turns toward him again. There is a faint, inscrutable smile on her lips.
How old are you, Jim?
21. Why? What does that got to do with the situation?
21. How marvelously young that is. I'm 26, Jim. You didn't know that, did you?
Gosh, Linda, you say such trivial things.
I know. I have a terribly trivial mind. Poor Jim. You're all tired out and soaking wet. That long walk through the rain all for nothing? Here, I'll put the screen in front of the bed. You can undress and have a nap. I still have some ironing to do. After a while, you can go down and get a bite to eat from Mrs. O'Fallon. I'm sure she'll be glad to let you have something.
She always used to before I got...
Yes, I know. Before you got yourself tied up with a dame. Oh well. There's a price for everything. Nothing comes for nothing, Jim. You'll learn that someday.
With the screen drawn in front of Jim's couch, Linda hastily throws her things into the new traveling bag. She darts about the room with an almost frantic rapidity.
My God, what a racket you're making. What are you doing?
Nothing much. Just straightening things up a little. I'm nearly through now.
And that light's in my eyes. I can't sleep.
Just a moment, darling. I'll turn it out.
She goes over to the window with her traveling bag in her hand. Looks out, shading her eyes with one hand.
It's clearing up, Jim. The rain has stopped. It's going to be a wonderful night. Oh my, there's a funny little slice of a moon coming out, right over the Fix-It garage. It looks like a yellow dancing slipper, Jim. Tomorrow's going to be an awfully swell day, almost like spring, I imagine. Those awful wet spots on the floor will dry up when the sun comes out. It will be very nice in here then. I'm sure it must be much healthier to live in a dry, bright attic than a magic tower with a leaking roof.
For God's sakes, Linda, I'm trying to sleep.
I'm sorry, poor Jim.
She pulls a ring from her finger and lays it on the bureau.
I'll turn the light out now. Jim, are you asleep?
She looks toward the screen. There's no answer. She switches off the light and goes quietly out the door and closes it behind her. Curtain. The end. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. So now that we've read through it, we thought we'd just have a little discussion about the script. I think there's a lot of talking points. Is there anybody in our audience who has a comment or a question? You can unmute yourself and say what you'd like. Anybody?
I enjoyed it.
I thought it was wonderful, lively. It was great. It took me a while to get in, but it was great.
Sorry.
No problem.
I got in before Sandy, but I got in.
I was trying to, read and let people in, and I had people like texting me saying they were trying to get in, so I apologize if I got a little off track. But yeah, so if nobody else has any comments, I can kind of start talking about kind of why I chose this play and some of the discussion that we've had after we read it the first time. Anybody have anything before I do that?
Oh, I just want to say Jen did a real good job.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
She needs to get back on stage with us.
And Lainey looks very comfortable.
She does.
Why didn't Chloe say anything?
She missed that part.
Yeah.
Did I miss that part?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she just had a couple of lines.
Well, I'll be darned. Sorry.
Say hi, Roger.
Hi, Roger.
Hey.
Lainey, did you have something?
I just wanted to say that I think like Sam and Adam's characters like really represented those bad thoughts that Linda was talking about, and like how like your anxiety and depression and like how those kind of thoughts overwhelm you and stuff like that. So I just thought that he did a very good job of representing that and how it makes people feel.
Yeah.
So did you all decide his babe is coming back, or is she gone?
Yeah, so that's part of the discussion. What do you think? Is Linda going to come back?
I think she is. I think.
You think so?
I don't think so.
I don't think Linda's coming back. I think Jim's going to go after her.
I don't think she's coming back either.
Yeah. So, so one of the things that we talked about before when we first read it was what might an act 2 of this one act play look like? You know, what does Jim get up and try to go after her? Does he get up and buy a ticket and go to Europe, study art? Who knows? For me, when I was reading scripts, trying to pick something for us to do, this was actually the first script I read, and I said, ugh, such a good script, so depressing. I don't think we're going to do that one.
Look, even the kids are like.
And so then I read all these other scripts, and I was having one of those days where I was kind of feeling sorry for myself and feeling bad about the whole situation that we're in right now with COVID-19. And I thought about this script, and I thought, you know, I think of Linda and Jim in their magic tower, and the world around them is not great. They don't have any money, and the roof's leaking. But to them, at the beginning of this play, it's magic. All they need is each other. And then Babe and Mitch come in, and all these negative thoughts and comments get into Linda's head. Jim goes and has a bad experience with the art dealer and comes back in a bad mood. And then Linda, right at the end, before she leaves, she starts talking to Jim about, you know, tomorrow's going to be a better day and the sun's going to come out, and, you know, the wet spots on the floor are going to dry up, and, you know, maybe it's better to be in a dry, how did she say it, a dry attic than a magic tower. And you almost think, oh, well, maybe this is going to look up. She's going to try to, you know, convince him that the world's not so bad. And then, well, she leaves. And for me, I just thought, how different could this have turned out if they had just taken their perspectives back to where they were at the beginning? And not, you know, there's reality versus a fairy tale, but they were young and in love and happy and dancing, and there was magic there, even though the world around them wasn't so great. And for me, you know, I've been seeing these little glimpses, especially from my kids, being around them all the time. But you know, anybody who knows my little Evan, he's just a ray of sunshine all the time, most of the time. And he heard me saying his name. Here he comes. Get up here. Oh, there's my sunshine.
Hi, Evan.
And for me, I just
Amen, boy.
things aren't so good right now, but there's a little magic in every day. So, eating an episode. And so that was, look, you see Stephanie? You see everybody?
Hey, Stephanie, we got theater design.
Oh, he went back to designing the theater today, Stephanie.
That's my boy.
That was my magic today. There's a blueprint of the new theater we're going to build one of these days on a dry erase board in my living room right now. So
it would.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Keep on working on it.
Yeah, and he came to me. He came to me and kind of turned my day around today doing that. So that's kind of my perspective. That's why I chose this. That's why I chose this particular play. I just kind of thought that it was for me, it was a reminder for me to just, things aren't so good, but your attitude and perspective can make a big difference. Anybody else have anything?
I probably identified with a lot of it
I want
over the
to show
last
her the
few years.
picture on the.
Go ahead.
Evan wants me to show you the picture of the theater blueprint.
No, I want to.
Hold on.
Pardon me, guys, while Evan and I hijacked the whole thing.
Yeah.
Go on.
Evan hijacks most things most of the time. Let's see.
I can't.
Okay. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see if she can see it.
It's hard to see. It's all.
There, I can see it.
So
I can see it.
There's an upstairs and a downstairs, and the popcorn machine is really big. And yeah, so he drew
Yes.
electrical.
We
wire.
need popcorn.
So he's ready. Whenever you're ready to call a contractor one of these days.
You and I are on the same track, Evan.
Yep.
I love
I
you.
need to see it. Oh gosh.
Okay. Anything else?
I think there's
Going off
something
of
to
like
say,
Emily.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just think there's something to say also with, because I know when we first read it, a lot of us were talking about the perspective and how much it changed, but I think by the end also there's something to say for you don't quite know what someone else is going through, so they live in this magical world for so long, but you don't always know when someone's magic is slipping and what the little words that we say that came out by the end of it. So I'm sure Jim just thought he was worn out and had no idea maybe where Linda was, but especially right now, I think this show, at first we were like, whoa, this is depressing, and it is a little bit, but also just such a great mirroring to what's happening right now, because we're all kind of stuck in our own little magic towers that sometimes, you feel the leaks, and then other days it's just absolutely magic. But as we go back out into the real world, because that's what, Jim just got completely beat down by the real world. He's been stuck in this tower. Just being aware of, we don't quite know where others' magic level is at, and just being aware with our words and how they affect others and our actions.
Yeah, and I think that like part of the reason that talking about the idea of like Act 2 or whatever, I think that actually a big part of it was that the world was beating her down, but she always had Jim to turn to, right? And at the main end, whenever he was like, that was just words, I think that probably was like the most powerful part of the show, because it really showed that I was just saying that, and it was like, oh, so you really don't think that, what we talk about is important or real. And I think that actually has like a big statement to like the part of the play as a whole.
I felt it for her, the devastation in the word.
Yeah.
She just couldn't believe it. He didn't believe it too.
Yeah. And and whenever she was like being like eat up by all these bad thoughts, and she's always saying like, hey, I want you to be here because I started thinking badly. And then he's like, ha ha ha, that's funny. Because he just doesn't understand. And then at the main end, we actually see a more grown up version of Jim, because we can see that like he's, adult, because he's really like, oh crap, what am I going to do? I just got rejected at the thing I thought I could succeed at, but I can't.
I thought Tennessee Williams' use of language was more succinct and streamlined than it usually is in his earlier work. His earlier works are usually very wordy and very off on different tangents, and you're like, oh good God, how much of this do I have to cut? But I think this is unusual in how succinct and streamlined his language was. which is odd.
That is interesting because it was, Emily, you may know you may have said it the year that he actually wrote this, but I mean, it sat on the shelf for so long.
1936.
Yeah, so it was one of his earlier works, and then it just kind of sat there.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't think there were enough words. That's why it sat there.
Maybe.
Hey guys, this is Susie. How is everyone?
Hey,
Pretty
Susie.
good.
Hi, Susie.
Hey. I just wanted to say we did miss a few minutes of it. We were getting in and out of the car, and so I might have missed this part of it. But did it ever come up about why she left the show? Did she just meet Jim and fall in love and leave the show?
I think that's the implication. It doesn't really say it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really say it specifically.
Which
And
makes you kind of wonder how much Jim actually knows about her life as a performer. You know, if we talk about will he run after her or will he go to Europe? Well, one, he may not even know that Europe's an idea that he can have. And does he know that she's going to the show again, or just think that she's down trying to wash clothes somewhere or something? So yeah, that's something that's not really covered and comes in at the end to create even more questions.
yeah.
And that's what Lainey said, like it's a traveling show. So how much time did they even have like together to get to know each other before they ran off to a whirlwind marriage and happiness and, you know.
I also thought it was really interesting that she said, you know, I don't know if you'll believe this, but this is the happiest I've ever been, when she was in the little one-room shack with a leaky roof, and she's been all over the United States acting and traveling, and she's known as the Duchess, which I don't think he even knows they call her the Duchess.
Oh, no.
But, yeah, it was just, I think she meant that when she said, this is the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah.
So.
She did shiver when Mr. Bergman was mentioned, if anybody else caught that. I just wonder what that was all about.
I know. It's like, did he pluck her as a child and groom her into this thing where there's some undertones of like,
I mean, you can play her more than anybody else.
I mean, you could go rampant with that.
Well, and we keep talking about how much Bergman's gonna like cry when he sees her and how much he misses her and stuff like that. So it kind of implies more that she was very special to Bergman for whatever weird reason.
As a side note, I loved watching my son's reactions to things. He'd be like, and then he'd be like, you know, and I loved watching that. I'm sorry. That was cool.
I loved his answer to the question too. I think we have a little hopeless romantic on our hands. When he knows to be going back.
Perspective and attitude, right? I mean, is there any better perspective than attitude than J.R. Vasquez? Everybody just needs a J.R. hug one of these days.
Yes.
One day.
But I'll go ahead and put it out there. So the interesting part about that, Tennessee Williams chose the profession of two artists. So two artists having artistic lives versus having a relationship life, and how to weigh that out, because not many other professions make you make that decision as often as artistic lives do.
It reminds me of like an actress and a musician, and one is more, you know, successful than the other, and this and that, and I mean, yeah, it happens. Okay, so did anybody like Mrs. O'Flannery?
I did.
Oh, I loved her.
I did. I love the accent.
You encouraged you to keep from laughing at your facial expressions.
I had a great time. I had a great time with her.
Yeah, I picked you because I knew what you would. I knew what you would do with her.
Lainey says, I think you portrayed her well, but I did not like her.
That really means she portrayed her well.
That means I did my job, right?
Yeah.
I love you guys. I've missed you.
We love you too. I'm going to read for anybody who doesn't have the group chat open. This is my dad. He says, thanks for the invite. Was good to see the play. I think it's good. But mostly for me, was good to see this many of us together.
Aww.
Amen.
Hey, Rodney.
Ronnie.
Yeah, he's muted. Who knows where he's at?
It is wonderful seeing everybody's beautiful faces.
Yes, it definitely is.
Yeah. Oh, well.
No, he didn't leave. He's still watching.
That sounded so bad how he said it. It's because he can't see your face.
That's exactly what Lainey just said. It was so great to see everybody's faces except yours.
Yours.
We've not been around people in a really long time. We don't know how to communicate anymore.
There he is. There he is.
There's a Rodney face.
Rodney.
Rodney.
Hey!
Stay on there. I've called the boys to come see you.
See Dave's goatee. What up?
Where's Logan?
Hi, Greg.
There's Papa.
Oh, there's Sandy.
Are you mad at me right now?
Hey, Mom.
I love you all so much.
Oh, yeah. Hi,
Hello,
I'll give you
Evan.
some. Stick your head in. Smile.
Hi, Evan.
Oh, there he is.
Hello. Almost.
Can you tell which one's my performer and which one isn't?
But he was in the Christmas pack.
He was going to be in the Aristocats. Maybe we might get to do it one day. I hope. Yeah. So, just FYI, I have recorded this. So, if you came in late and want to catch it again, I'll probably take the file and see if I can load it onto Facebook or somewhere somehow, so that anybody.
I'd like that because I missed the first part, so I was a little lost. But I think I caught up.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, sorry. You gotta stay here.
You assisting me.
Okay.
I just want to say this is the biggest part I've had in like 20 years, and I had so much fun.
Yeah.
You did
It was so
great.
good doing this with you.
Yes. And Elathan, you can organize another one of these if you'd like. Let somebody else pick a show and pick another cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't worry, it's coming next week.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
It was fun, everybody. I didn't know what to expect.
So great to see
I
you.
had. It was really good. Thank you.
I'm good.
Well, and be happy, y'all.
Thank you, guys. We love all of you.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, guys.
What do we do, Excel?
Hi, Evan.
Love you, Mom.
Roger, when you're finished, just hit leave meeting at the bottom and it'll close you out.
Well, let me find it. Wait.
I was going to ask.
To leave, it's going to kick everybody off.
Somebody delete me. I don't know how.
Who's leave meeting?
I don't see leave meeting.
Roger's been deleted.
Oh, it might say leave in the. It depends if you have a phone or computer or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody make
On the
me
computer, it
leave.
says on the bottom right.
Bye, Roger.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone now. He found it. He found leave meeting.
Hi, Jay.
Okay. Ready for
Bye,
bed?
lesson.
Sandy, how are you doing?
I'm not leaving yet.
Yeah.
Great job, guys. Really great job.
Thank you.
Love you, Steph.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Bye. Love you.
I love you. Bye.
I'll see you in the theater back.
I will see you at the theater.
And you're gonna see how beautiful it's gonna look.
Evan, send me a picture of your theater.
We'll send a picture to her.
Our puppy wants to say hi.
Not the one with
Stephanie.
the crazy hairness.
Hi, puppy.
Yeah, I haven't been to the groomer, but I wanted to say hi anyway.
We're not gonna send you the picture with the crazy hairness. Only the one without.
All right, I'm gonna go. I love you guys.
Love you.
I'm out.
Love you.
Love you, baby.
Stephanie, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I'm
All
gonna
right.
go get ready for bed.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get these children in bed.
I'm trying to go to bed.
Yeah. So good to see you guys. Hope we can do this again.
We're gonna blow the air mattress.
Yes, you can do. Yeah, you can do it now.